I am the luckiest guy in the world. And yet, if it hadn't been for overdue library books, a freshman physics class, and homemade pickles, I might never have fallen in love with Joan. Our story begins in the early 60s when I was in my third year as an engineering student at UC Berkeley. I was taller than most and looked older than my 20 years, so the guys would often send me for the beer, though I didn't drink that much. It was a simpler time. There were no cell phones, no internet, no personal computers, not even a basic calculator. Just paper and pencil, lots of books, and my trusty slide rule. I was a serious student, studying most of the time.
After I graduated high school in 1962, I could hardly wait to go to college. I chose UC Berkeley because it meant I could leave my home in Los Angeles and live on campus. I really loved college life, and I quickly started dating. John Weber was my first college boyfriend. I felt so grown up and independent. Steve was John's roommate in the dorms. And I first met Steve when he joined John and me and a friend of mine from UCLA at the UCLA Cal football game. I'll always remember my first impression of Steve. I was just immediately attracted to him. He was not only adorable, but he was tall and thin. He had blonde hair and blue eyes, but I was really impressed by his kindness and his manners. And I spent most of the game time talking with Steve. I found him to be smart and funny, which were two qualities that I really admired. And I thought to myself, hubba hubba, I could really fall for someone like this.
During that football game, I sat next to Joan and spoke to her for the first time. She was sharp. She had a great sense of humor and was very easy on the eyes. I liked her. I liked Joan a lot and was happy for my roommate. You see, I already had a girlfriend. In fact, I was engaged to be married.
Even though Steve was engaged, I wanted to spend more time with him before the end of the school year. So one day I found out he was going to the library, and I asked him to take some overdue books back for me. But I gave him more money than he would need so that he'd have to come back and give me the change. Well, when he called, I suggested we go for coffee, which we did. We went twice, because he forgot to give me the change and I wasn't going to remind him. I spent that summer trying to forget him, knowing that he was getting married.
Well, I didn't get married. My fiancée met someone who swept her off her feet and out of my life. I was bummed for a while, but I got over it. When I returned to Berkeley for my senior year, I moved to a private room in a home about a mile off campus. Unlike the dorms, I could now bring girls up to my room. So I started a tutoring service that I offered to the cutest girls in freshman physics. And I began to think about Joan, my old roommate's cute girlfriend, and wondered if I might have a chance with her.
When I realized that Steve was now available, I thought of ways that I could spend time with him. So I arranged for us to meet for lunch each day, and I brought the lunch. It was donated by my roommate who was skipping lunch at the dorms. And then when I found out that he was tutoring physics, I enrolled in the physics class, even though I really wasn't interested in that subject. But I just wanted to be tutored by Steve.
All the girls I tutored got A's in freshman physics, except Joan. Probably because we spent a lot of time doing other things. And as our friendship flowered into romance, Joan and I began dating exclusively. One of my favorite dates was the day we spent in Golden Gate Park in San Francisco. Joan packed a picnic basket and we found a secluded place behind the Japanese tea garden. Joan laid out the lunch on a cool tablecloth made from fern branches on top of a pile of sawdust. We had a great time and a great picnic, but I had sawdust in my shorts when we left. As our love grew, we knew we wanted to spend our lives together. When I finally asked Joan to marry me, she said yes. So now we had to tell our parents. Well, my mom and dad were delighted to meet Joan and gave us their approval right away. My brother liked her too. Joan's parents were divorced, so we saw them at separate times, and they were both okay with it, knowing that final approval would come from her grandmother.
I remember taking Steve home to meet my family. I was worried because I was never allowed to date non-Jewish boys. And if my grandmother did not approve of Steve, I would be faced with the tough decision of choosing between him and my family.
When we arrived at grandmother's home, I was escorted into the kitchen and seated at the kitchen table alone with Grandma Jenny. She talked about Joan and the family and how special Joan was, and I agreed. She also served me several delicious dishes, including her homemade pickles, which I scarfed. After we talked for about an hour, she left me there and went to find Joni.
My grandmother took me into another room. She raised herself up to her full 5-foot height, put her hand on her hip, and said, "Joni, him I like. Him you can see." What a relief. I think she liked him partly because he liked her cooking, but her approval meant that my family had to accept him.
So we set the wedding date for August 15th, just before my last semester at Berkeley. Joan's parents were fighting about who should pay for the wedding, so we decided to send out our own invitations and pay for our own wedding. We chose the Highlands Inn near Carmel to use their little chapel by the sea for our wedding because of its romantic setting on a cliff overlooking the Pacific. We were atheist and Jew, so we hired a local justice of the peace to preside at the wedding. The ceremony was very traditional with only the minimum I do vows. Finally, the justice of the peace pronounced us husband and wife. The time came for the kiss, and we were off to the reception in the hotel, now officially as Mr. and Mrs. Carmen. We could only afford one night at the hotel, just the start of our lifelong, never-ending honeymoon. We spent the night in the Rob Roy cabin in the Highlands Inn.
After we were married, I dropped all my classes and got a job so that we could afford a small apartment during Steve's last semester.
Joan was pregnant with our first child. Yay! We wanted a boy first, so we got everything blue. I had several job offers upon graduation in January '65, and I chose working with NASA on Project Apollo space program at North American Aviation, sending man to the moon. We moved to Southern California.
Well, Scott Donald was born in March. His middle name was taken from Steve's dad. Scott was a delight and a joy to care for. Because he was such a good baby, he tricked us into thinking that this parenting thing was really easy. We couldn't figure out why people were saying it would be difficult. And so we decided we were going to have at least 4 kids. Well, Steve was working in the very exciting space program, and I was home taking care of our son. Steve worried that my brain might turn to mush since changing diapers and cooking was not intellectually stimulating.
Well, to provide that intellectual stimulation, I decided to give Joan a technical problem to solve each week, along with a small monetary prize if she got the correct answer.
Well, at first the questions were practical, like how does my hairspray can work, or how does a toilet flush? And I got the correct answers quickly. So Steve came up with increasingly more difficult questions, but I continued to respond correctly every week.
Well, I was determined to find a problem that would stump Joan. I recalled one I had missed on a final exam and knew she'd have difficulty with it, so I offered a bigger prize of $50 and gave her 2 weeks to solve it.
Well, Steve challenged me with this question. Suppose I told you that overnight everything in the universe had shrunk in half. How would you prove me right or wrong? Well, needless to say, I figured it out, I collected my $50, Steve ended the quiz time and realized he did not marry a dummy.
Our first year of marriage was shaken by the death of my parents. A month after our wedding, my dad passed away. Mom died less than a year later. They were just 41 and 42 years old. We were very close, and I took their passing very hard. Joan and I bonded closer as I cried on her shoulder through the emotional heartache of losing both my parents so young. At work, I was involved in training the first Apollo astronauts. The training was going well until a fire broke out inside the command module during an Apollo launch rehearsal. It killed all 3 astronauts. My heart was still heavy with the death of my parents, and now going to work brought similar sorrow. It took a long while for me to get back to normal after all the sadness.
When Sherry was born on May 8, 1967, she was adorable, but it seemed like she cried a lot for the first 6 months. Maybe this parenting thing wasn't as easy as we thought. We changed our mind and decided that maybe 2 children would be just right.
We moved to Denver, where I accepted a job with Martin Marietta Aerospace, working on Skylab, NASA's first space station, developing the astronauts' medical experiments. Later, I was assigned to NASA's Viking mission to Mars, developing cameras and other sensors designed to look for life on that red planet. Our home in Denver was not far from one of Denver's largest churches, Calvary Temple. Through the invitation of the Kurtz family, who we met at a company picnic, we accepted an invitation to take Scott and Sherry to church. Over the next few months, our lives were transformed as we accepted Christ as our Messiah and Lord. We now had deeper meaning and a spiritual foundation for our family. Joan became a licensed minister with the Assemblies of God and served as an associate pastor in the churches we attended. She is a wonderful counselor, and many people tell stories of how her wisdom helped them overcome difficulties. Christopher James was born May 10th, 1971. Chris was as beautiful and as goofy as our other 2 children and was a delightful baby. Our family was now complete.
Well, one of the most pivotal moments in our relationship can be traced back to a discovery we made when we were attending a marriage retreat. The retreat speaker asked us to go back to our room and each make a list of our strengths and weaknesses. Well, I started to make my list, and pretty soon Steve came to me and he shared not only his list, but a list he made for me as well. And not only the lists, he had made them into a bar chart. Well, as Steve was explaining this to me, I was thinking, who in the world is this man? He not only presumed to make my list, but he reduced us to bar charts. Suddenly, Steve stopped and he looked at the 2 charts and he put them together and he showed how they fit together perfectly. Where I was weak, he was strong, and where he was weak, I was strong. In other words, together we scored a perfect 10 in every category. We truly completed each other. This truth has stayed with us since we realized that our differences combine to become our greatest strength. We no longer saw our differences as a problem or annoyance, but we were able to appreciate and even embrace them.
We looked back on the occasion of our 12th anniversary and noticed the contrast between our first 6 years without the Lord and our next 6 years with the Lord. So we decided to rededicate our marriage by renewing our vows with the pastor who had led us both to the Lord. The rededication ceremony was held in our home, and our children and friends participated. The wedding cake was much larger than our original wedding cake. We also celebrated our 25th anniversary with a party given by our friends and enjoyed another wedding cake, another kiss, and another honeymoon. The cake was larger and the honeymoon was longer, and the kiss was sweeter. I retired about 2 years ago, and we moved to a wonderful retirement community called Laguna Woods Village. So now we're village people. Our lovely home has been prepared as a comfortable abode for our remaining years. I've got my Traeger barbecue, my big leather recliner, and my office, the Lunar Outpost. Our home is located very close to all our children and grandchildren, and that's what really excites us, because we have the opportunity to reach out to our family and watch our grandchildren blossom into young adults as they venture into the amazing world around us. We plan to spend much time with our family at home or as we travel together, including our traditional family reunion in Maui every other year.
Every stage of life has wonderful things to offer, but I find this is especially true of these years. I have really enjoyed the luxury of time that comes with retirement. There's more time to spend with family and friends, and there's time to pursue new interests. I'm especially enjoying learning how to play golf, and painting lessons have allowed me to explore my creative side. Then there's knitting and ukulele lessons, which have provided a lot of fun and enjoyment. Yes, retirement is a wonderful stage of life.
There are many reasons why I say I'm the luckiest man on earth. First and foremost, I married well. My Joan turned out to be a super wife and mom, and an awesome grandma. She not only completes me, but is a source of strength, wisdom, and calm assurance for me to draw upon. She not only has an outer beauty, but an inner beauty too. Her sensitive spirit allows her to empathize with other people. And when it comes to cooking, Joan makes a great pot of bean soup for me each week. She's also family famous for her smoke alarm garlic bread. But her favorite thing to make for dinner is reservations. She has a great sense of humor that delights me every day. I've come to trust Joan and love her as part of me. We have truly become one in a love that continues to grow as the years roll by. That's why I'm the luckiest guy in the world.
Steve's amazing accomplishments in space exploration and project management have made our life so exciting and interesting. I especially loved our trips to New York and Washington, D.C., where we attended black tie dinners as he received awards for his work. I love Steve's brilliant mind and his tender heart. My sweetheart, who trained the astronauts, designed the cameras that gave us the photos of Mars, proved that there's water on the moon, and revolutionized project management by establishing Carmenization, is the same wonderful man who writes me beautiful love letters, cries when he hears a sad or touching story, is first in line for the newest cartoon movie, and even interrupted a meeting with NASA to meet me at a restaurant just to sing his special birthday song to my friend. This is a man I have loved for over 50 years. This is a man with whom I will continue to share love, laughter, and wonderful memories. So if Steve thinks he's the luckiest man in the world, the reality is that I am the luckiest woman in the world.
Scott, Sherry, and Chris have perfected the great Carmen sense of humor, and family gatherings are filled with lots of fun and laughter. I'm so proud of them as they recognize the value of seeing the funny side of life and pass that along to their children.
Mom and Dad, I just want to wish you a happy anniversary, happy 50th. Congratulations on 50 years. It must be so fun to be celebrating being together that long and being married, loving each other. I know it's been awesome being a family for almost that long. And being raised with all the laughs and the love and the life experiences has been wonderful. I'm very grateful to you. I'm proud you're my parents. I'm proud to be your daughter. And life has been really great with you as parents. But this current time where we see each other often, we live close, and we spend time together is truly my most treasured time. I value it so much. I'm so grateful for it. And I hope that this week is the most fun, most memorable, greatest time ever. That you know how much we love you, how much we celebrate you, and you just have such a fun time. And these memories are going to live on forever and ever and ever. We're all going to have them in our hearts and our minds. We'll be able to recall them and laugh about them and joke about them some more so we can run that into the ground. But no doubt we're building lasting memories that all of us are going to have forever. So thank you. And here's to you. Happy anniversary. I love you so much. Oh, dinner's ready. It's ready. Oh, just like Mom used to make. Dinner's ready, everybody.
Oh, ahoy! Come with me. I want to take you to a memory we had as a family down in San Diego. Come on! We were enjoying a wonderful vacation away as a family down in San Diego at a resort that used to be right on the bay. We decided we wanted to go out as the 3 kids out on a boat in the harbor. So Dad went and rented a great little power boat. And this is what ensued. Dad steered out of the harbor and bravely took us into the wind and the waves. Meanwhile, we 3 were in the back, protected behind our wonderful father who was taking the brunt of the storm, and we sang along like this. Down by the sea, where the motors go hum. Well, we were enjoying the beautiful sunshine. And we sang and sang the whole way through while Dad was just getting annihilated. Down by the sea, where the motors go hum. And we enjoyed San Diego to the fullest. See.
It's the classic head block maneuver. I've been studying this for years. Started at a very early age. Some people call it an obsession. Call it what you will. Early on, I understood 2 opposing facts. Fact number 1, you can't kiss in church. Fact number 2, people get married in churches all the time, so I couldn't reconcile that when it comes time to kiss your bride, what are you supposed to do? The only logical conclusion was that they were faking the kiss. In my study, 62% of the time, people are blocking the kiss with the head, 22% with the arm. Rest of the time, they just put somebody in the way, preacher, some flowers, what have you. Although you can get very close, everybody knows you can't actually kiss. As I was forming this theory, I got some big news when I was about 5 years old. My parents told us they'd be renewing their vows and we'd be having a wedding. In fact, we'd all get to be in the wedding. I knew this would be my chance. I'd be closer than ever before. And I'd be able to see if the kiss is real, or as I like to acknowledge, fake. So when it came time for the kiss, I'd be strategically placed there next to my mother and father, and when he said kiss the bride, I remember leaning up and casually getting a good clean view of the kiss, and frankly, I was shocked. The kiss was real. Disgusting, yes, but I couldn't understand, and it blew my theory, and so for weeks I struggled with it until it dawned on me we weren't in a church at this wedding. It was a nice ceremony that took place in our home, and I understood now. This is why people get married at beaches or parks, or outdoor weddings are going to be just fine. But everybody knows you can't kiss in church. I've been married twice, as you know, and both times I did the honorable thing. I faked the kiss. Not many people know this. Someday I'll be proven right. But until then, I'll keep doing my research.
45 seconds. Wow. It's hard to really impart a memory in 45 seconds. Let me try. I don't know. What? Oh, 20 seconds are gone. 25 seconds. Oh, okay. Oh, I got a great memory. There was a time oh, such good memories.